Welcome to my channel. Today, what to do with unwanted napkins. This is a stash builder video. So the other week, a couple weeks ago, I was organizing in my studio and I went through my 4 or 5 napkin binders. Yes, I have 4 or 5 of them. And I pulled napkins that I did not think that I was going to be using. For whatever reason. I've done a page or 2 with them. They are too small scale. They're not inspiring for a variety of reasons. Sometimes you just have a surplus of napkins. Now, some of these have very small images, and those are ones that I struggle with because typically I want larger size focal images. But they do have some nice patterns. And so as they sat there, I looked at them and I felt guilty about throwing them away. So I put my mind to work in trying to think of ways to use at least some or part of these various napkins. And so this has given me 2 different videos, this one and one that will be coming. So in this one, a lot of the napkins are, the focal images or the images on them are smaller. And I'm not going to use them as that. And I wanted to get them to a state where they are quickly usable on my smaller projects or even on an art journal page. And that is going to speed up the creative process down the road. Now I'm going to go through a lot of napkins, and a lot of it is repeated, and I've sped that up, but you're going to want to keep the sound on because there's lots of tips and tricks along the way. So this is one of the napkins that I do love a lot of the focal images, the mushrooms, and it is something that I would create with. Albeit they are a little bit on the smaller side. But I know with smaller size images, you can mix and match them. You can add them to something else that's on another napkin or another focal image that you're using. So here is the process. And I've kept a lot of this in to show you my thinking. There may be a way. Now, if you're using pretty much everything on the napkin, you may just want to glue the napkin straight down onto, I'm putting it on copy paper, recycled copy paper at that, but you could put it on mixed media paper or cardstock or whatever you prefer. Be sure to take off the excess 2 plies. And I just thought it was faster to put the whole thing on instead of cutting it out and wasting time doing that. You'll see how I've changed my opinion. Now, that still might be the right thing, but I also didn't want to have a lot of excess pages that I would now have to store and organize. Because whatever you put in your stash, you need a way of organizing it that makes it really easy to find, access, and use. And I do share how I'm going to store these and how I'm going to organize them at the end of the video. So there's a lot of information shared. So on this one, I'm kind of finding my way. Now I start here wanting to maximize how many things I get on a sheet, so I start individually cutting out some of the items and taking off the backings. Now when I cut them, I've typically left on both plies, excess plies. It makes the napkin a little bit more stable and easier to cut. If you take off the plies before, it gets very flimsy and it's going to take you longer. And I want to make this as quick as possible. So as I started cutting them, I realized that that was actually quicker than doing what I did before. So I'm taking those napkins and I'm cutting them, and I'm moving into kind of an assembly line process. And whenever you get into that assembly line process, I find I become more efficient and things happen. Now you could take these napkins and cut them apart while you're waiting for your child at dance, or waiting in the doctor's office, or waiting to pick up your, waiting for your groceries at the grocery store. Whatever. You can make the time to do that. Have a little baggie and your scissors and a little garbage bag and do that. That part can be done. You can do this while you're in front of the TV. So all I'm doing here is I am cutting them apart, sorting them by kind. So all the blue mushrooms are one, all the leaves are together, all the pine cones are together. Because I'm thinking, how am I going to organize these? And I thought if I glue them on the paper, like with like, that will keep them organized. I don't have to search for them later on. That's going to streamline the process. So that's what I've decided to do. Now again, you're taking off both excess plies before you glue them down. I'm gluing it down all through this video with my fluid matte medium. You could use decoupage, you could use Mod Podge. My preferred one is Liquitex Basics liquid matte medium. I put some underneath and I put some on top. This turns it into a non-porous surface, prepares it for whatever you're going to end up doing on the page, and gets it going. And you can see, I know this video sped up, but you can see how quick this is at this stage once you're going assembly line. So, you've cut them apart while watching TV, you go into the studio, you open up your Mod Podge or your liquid gel medium, and you glue everything down. The purpose of stash building is you're doing that kind of out of the moment, out of that creative moment, so that you have them at the ready when you are creating. And it makes your creative time a little shorter because you're not having to stop, cut them out, glue them down, wait for them to dry. And when you have a limited time to create, that's really valuable. And there we have lots of sheets. So here I've done a couple of these and I've figured out something. I said if you leave the plies on, they're easier to cut. They are also easy to cut if you just take off one ply. So I took off one ply here, left the other ply on. Now the one ply is very easy to come off. It's way easier than when there were two on the little cutout ones. Now here's another thing you can do by this process. That sunflower, there were two halves and I've paired them together. Now would I do that with everything that's partial? No, but I love using sunflowers in my art. So I know I'm likely to use that. When you look at the elements on a napkin, you have to be very critical and very honest about, is this something you will use? Do you need 12 of them, or are you only going to use maybe 6? Then only do 6. So here, take off the one ply. Now I'm only cutting the elements out that I'm going to use. There are some grayscale things there. I'm not going to use them, so I'm leaving them alone. There are some smaller ones. There's some really tiny bees, but you know what? I don't like fussy cutting, and I don't want to have those tiny ones. These animals, I selected. This one I decided it's too small to even worry about. Now this one, they look like postage stamps, but they're close together. So this is a case where you're going to glue the whole thing down. There's really no wasted space in between. So I'm taking off both plies and gluing it down again with my fluid matte medium. So just like this one's different than some of the other ones, I have some other napkins that I'm going to demonstrate different ways of looking at things. Then once this was dry, because it's all together, and this is a stash builder, I grabbed this postal stamp set from Bo Bunny, and I have the waves, and I'm giving it the postage stamps that it kind of, when it goes through the post office, and I'm putting that right on here when they're together. That's going to save time down the road. Remember, stash builders are all about saving time down the road. And look how cute these stamps look. I think this will be great to use on a vintage page, as, you know, first or second layers, I can't wait to start using. Then I'm cutting them to give that wavy length. Don't they look adorable? And I will have a lot of them, because this napkin. Now, all the napkins you see here, there is nothing wrong with the napkin, and you might love some of these napkins. It might have images that really speak to you, and they're what you like to create with. So it isn't about the napkin being right or wrong, or it's about matching it to how you create. Now let's talk about small scale things you can use these smaller scale elements on. I went through all my substrates, and here is what I had. This is a 6x6 media board from the Crafter's Workshop. I also have cards that are 6x6. So that is a perfect size. You can mix and match, combine them. Canvas boards of various sizes. Cardboard coasters and wooden coasters. You can make a coaster with this, or you can turn it into a fridge magnet. Tags. We've got a couple different sizes of tags. This is a cradled wood panel in smaller scale. A door hanger. You can put this on a composition book, an altered card, or on an ATCs. These are ATC backs that I use. I also have a 6x6 journal signature and a 3x6 journal signature that I have in this DIY journal that I made. And as you can see, some of the backs and some of the backgrounds are already done in there. Here's a 5x7. So all of these things I might be able to use some of the items that I am harvesting from these napkins. So again, we have a partially finished background. And I'm going to show you at the end of the video where I actually do that. Now, I also have some partially finished composition books. I glued down some gel prints. All this needs is a sentiment and a focal image. So it's partially done. Again, these are stash builders. I've got some triangular journal cards. Again, it needs a focal image and a sentiment. I've got some cardboard coasters that already have a background on them. I've used some masterboards on them, and some square journal cards. So let's get back to harvesting from napkins. Now, some of the napkins have something on it like that deer head that just, it blocks you from using the napkin. I am not someone who's going to use that deer, so I'm cutting it off. And as soon as I do that, I see this beautiful rose border, and I think I could glue that onto a page. And that's beautiful. Look at the colors. Isn't that amazing? So I'm just going to save these. We're going to come back to this in this video in a few. Now this, I'm going to save that. That'll be the next video where I'm transforming napkins and using them. Now this napkin, it has a bird, it has a birdhouse, but the colors are very pastel. It didn't excite me, but I like the anemone at the bottom, so I thought, oh, maybe I'll just harvest those. And then I thought, oh, you know what, I'm going to keep the bird as well. So I'm cutting out the bird with the anemone, and here's a piece of lavender because I love lavender, so the likelihood of me using it might be there. Now, if I don't need to take all of the things from the napkin. I'm only going to spend time cutting them out, gluing them down, if I logically, realistically think I'm going to use them. So some of those anemones, I cut off the birds and I don't decide to use them because I know I have lots of napkins. If you are short on supplies, you're going to want to save more things. But don't spend so much time doing this now that they just are another thing that you're storing and you've actually invested time and work into it. Do not feel guilty about whatever you end up throwing in the garbage because you were going to throw all of it. So back to this rose border. I decided, instead of trying to keep it pristine, I am going to take it to the next level and get it ready. So I'm using my liner brush and I am water cutting it after I took off the 2 plies. I just wanted to get it. That's pink and I wanted that gone. And I'm going to glue it right down onto an art journal page. I don't know what else I'm going to put on this page, but I've broken the page with this beautiful rose border. And as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking this border would look so nice on a galvanized pail or a tin can. These roses are actually gorgeous, and I would actually buy this napkin again just for this. So really look at it. But I never saw these roses as being so beautiful until I cut that deer head out. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to glue this bird down with the anemone on a card. It's a 6x6 card. I'm going to turn that into a card and we'll see how we like it. Now sometimes very faded colors, what look faded on the napkin, brighten when you glue them down. So sometimes I know I'm surprised at how much nicer they are once you glue them down. Here I'm getting an idea, maybe doing it on a 5x7 card, combining the anemones, but now this is a napkin that I had used. I made a beautiful kitchen wall hanging, but roosters aren't my thing. But sunflowers are. So I thought I'm going to harvest the sunflowers, and I'm deciding how much of this I want to keep. Don't overthink it. Go with your gut instinct. And then the words on this aged looking background are perfect for collage papers on a vintage masterboard. I could even put it on that rose sheet. So I'm harvesting those. Now these I'm not gluing down onto paper because they'll go straight onto whatever substrate. And I'll keep these all in a folder together. And when I want collage papers, I will know where to go. Now again, those bunnies, I just didn't like them. It's me. I'm not going to make excuses, but I love the daffodils and the print in the middle. I thought I could use that as collage papers, and then I can use the daffodils. Now, I may decide to cut these daffodils down into individual flowers. I may decide to use it whole. So if I glue it down whole, I give myself options. So here I discovered this one I'm gluing up right side up. But if you want to have the opposite orientation to give you more options when you are composing your page, you can flip it under like I did here, and by the time you put a coat of the matte medium on, the colors come right through. Sometimes with some napkins it's a little bit duller, but you can always use your watercolor paints or Inktense blocks to deepen the color later on. Now this napkin has this beautiful black and white focal image. It's a nice size even. I could use this on my regular size art journal page, but that background, the yellow kind of green gray, wasn't really cutting it. It wasn't something that I was going to use like the napkin is. So I cut out the black and white flowers. Now, as I look at this, I could have done some of these upside down as well, and that would have given me more options. Now all those pieces of that pink and gray that I didn't like, I thought, I'm going to glue this down. This is my accidental art journal. This is where I put unwanted things, and the pages build up over time. And I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to break the page with these, and that's something else you can do with some of the leftover bits from your napkins. This is just going to be a first layer of color. I'm going to add some stamping or stenciling. Here's another napkin. I like the girl, but not so much the flowers. And well, who can have enough butterflies? So I cut out the butterflies. On this one, I looked and I saw the border. Lots of napkins have a border. Now here's a quick way to cut them straight. Use a rotary cutter on a cutting board. Quick and easy. Now I've left the excess plies on there, and I will keep the excess plies on while I store this. That just stabilizes it and makes it less flimsy and less likely to get damaged. And I'm just repeating it. I'm just putting the straight edge there, and I'm cutting this apart to use. I think this will make, I could use this as collage papers, or I could use it as a quick, easy border, kind of like washi tape in some ways. Here's a page. You can put it in the middle of the page. You can use half of it. Oh, I'm excited about that. That'll look great on a vintage page, vintage theme page. Now I want to save the flowers here. So I'm cutting it off from that brown background. And then I decide, you know, I'm going to save this for a vintage page or a more neutral page. So I don't go there often, but you know, there's a lot of pattern and interest on there. So again, before I glue them down, I am going to make sure I take off the excess plies. Now the black and white ones before, and those you can colorize them. Now these girls, I've also glued some of these down, upside down, and this is going to allow me to have the two girls looking at each other on a page, and that's going to give me more options. And once I cut off the flowers on some of them, now it looks more like a fairy, and I can really play with it, and the options are there. So here we have all the papers and things that we've done by harvesting stuff from unwanted napkins, napkins that were going into the garbage. And you can see I've cut some of them out because I'll be showing what I created with them. In addition, I have the start of a 6x6 card. I have the start of a 9x12 art journal page. And I even finished an art journal page in my accidental art journal. There was this background, and really I just put the focal image and a sentiment. How quick and easy is that once you had those focal images at the ready? And I've broken this page in my accidental art journal. So I'll add, the next time I have some paint or something, I'll be adding it to that. So what am I going to do with these now? I like how I've organized them, and I wouldn't cut them up ahead of time, but you can if that's your thing. But once they're cut, I mean, you can't get that time back, and that's why I'm not. I'll cut them as I need them, and I'll audition them. But you need to, once you cut them out, you need to have a place for them. And I highly recommend these plastic folders. I believe this is 9 or 10 by 7. They're A4 size or A5 size, and I'll put a link in the description box below. I get them from Amazon. I think I've ordered them 6 times. I keep my stamps in them. I keep my ephemera in them. Different things. I just find them very, very useful and handy, and one size kind of I can use for multiple things. So the ones that I've cut out because I've cut them out for a project and I've auditioned them and I haven't ended up using them are going to go in there. There's all those postage stamps we made. And then I'm just going to store this with the sheets that have other ones. So one of those sunflowers might be cut out, but the rest of them are still on the sheet. And you can just keep that. Originally I thought I'll just put all of these in a folder with the plastic sheet with the cutout ones, and that can just sit here in my ephemera folder or in my filing cabinet or my big blue box. But then I was at Walmart and I came across this 13 pocket expanding file. It's by Pen and Gear, and It's not overly sturdy, but it's perfect for what I want. It stands on my desk. It's going to be right in front of my workspace. And I thought this would be a perfect spot for this kind of ephemera, these kind of sheets. It's right there, because if you have this filed away in another part of the room, you're less likely to use it. But if I'm doing smaller scale things or I need a particular item, I can just grab this, find it, and add it to whatever project I'm on. Now I'm probably going to sort these out by theme, and I'm going to stick to the same themes that I have my napkins kind of organized in and my printables, but you do you. So I might do flowers, I might do animals, I might do fall. You get the idea. And I'm just going to file that, and then that is going to stand on my desk. Now, I have to figure out how to label them, but as an option, you can put them in a file folder once you've sorted them by theme and label that. And that way you can read, and you can just grab the flowers folder. It might keep them in a little bit better. I'm going to play with this and see how it works and works best. So I promised you some projects. I had some of those mini composition books done. I had some 6x3 signature that already had backgrounds, masterboard backgrounds on, and I played around. I matched colors from some of the ephemera that I got from harvesting from those napkins, and now I'm just gluing it down. Now, instead of the fluid matte medium, I'm using gel matte medium, because all these things have, there's a couple layers and they're a little thicker. I find the gel medium works better, but you can use liquid matte medium or Mod Podge. So I'm just gluing those down, and I've taken sentiments from my Grateful, Thankful, Blessed sentiment pack, and that's available as a digital download for purchase from NinnysNapkins, which is where all the napkins that you saw in this video originally came from. So I'm just gluing it down. Now, a lot of these backgrounds were pretty much done. I did add some details, some stamping, some splatters, and I'm not showing all of that. I did also do some shading and outlining, but this video isn't about making the art journal pages and the projects. It's about harvesting things from unwanted napkins. And here they are, all finished down, and I love these little books. And you can see I've taken, the owl comes from one napkin, the leaves come from another, and I've combined them. Here the sunflower, but it perfectly goes with what I had. Here we have the fox and the tree. So now that these are done, I can just put them back into my DIY journal with the rest of them. And how cute is this 6x6 with the mushrooms? I love this so much. I would make other cards with those same mushrooms. So I'm glad that I saved all of them from the napkin. Now, remember I said I took out a bunch of napkins? Here's another pile of napkins, but I'm going to be doing something different with these, but you're going to have to wait for another video. But I promise you, you're not going to want to miss it. Please subscribe to the channel and be sure to click the bell so you're notified of upcoming videos. Until next time, go look at your napkins. What can you harvest from them? How can you build your stash? Until next time, go get creative.